Sure.
Yeah, it's your
No,
meeting, so whatever you want to talk about, I have the
no,
time.
that's great. Yeah. No, so like I said, I'm Jefferson Jones, solutions architect, new to the company. I started last Monday
Great.
on the 4th. And I wanted to just to meet you and as a product manager, and I kind of figure out what your role is with the company, and then how my role as a solutions architect can interact with you, and what maybe we can do on our side to improve that communication or that process or workflow together.
Excellent. Yeah, no, no, definitely. So I'm product manager here at GitLab, and there's a good number of us. We're growing as well as your team is, I see. And so I'm responsible for an area of the product called the plan area. And so currently our product managers are split into different stages of the GitLab DevOps lifecycle as we branded it. And so we've split up our product and much of the company into cross-functional teams that work in each of these stages. And so, for example, there's a plan stage. So we have product manager, well, one product manager, and in the future we'll even divvy that up further into smaller areas within each stage. But for now, each stage has a cross-functional team for product development, including product managers, engineers, designers, and then we even have cross-functional folks from marketing, product marketing, content marketing, technical writing as well. And so it's interesting, just tidbit of information, roles like yourself, and then also pre-sales and account managers. My understanding is that they're not aligned with the product stages, but that they're aligned with maybe geography or maybe different. I don't know how you folks have been iterating on that, but definitely not aligned with stages. So that there's probably good reason for that. I don't know the reasons, but I do see half the organization is aligned with the stages, and then the other half is more customer aligned, as it were. So in terms of working, product managers working with folks like yourself and other customer facing roles, oftentimes you'll be interfacing with multiple of us for a given customer. And sometimes we'll be all on the same call. Sometimes I see folks in your role, and then and your peers in neighboring departments will pull us into separate conversations, and then maybe we'll be in the middle of a conversation, and then somebody in your role or somebody else might say, oh, let's table that for the next call we've had scheduled or something like that. So it's interesting. That's how product works. In a lot of these conversations, a lot of times it's initiated by, at least from my perspective, because I do get a lot of requests. So most of my communications with customers is from folks like yourself pulling me into conversations to help an existing customer. So I believe that's where you come in most of the time, right, as a solution architect.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'll be pulled in for a prospect instead of a paying customer. And then, I'll talk about things accordingly. So a prospect will be more about future things, vision. For existing customer, it could still be vision things, because maybe you're trying to tell the customer about newer things, or maybe a higher tier of features, or maybe because it's GitLab, there's so much functionality. Oh, you've used source control, it's great. Are you ready to try GitLab issue management? And then they'll pull me in. So that's how I typically interact. It's a lot of transactional on-demand needs. And then for the bigger customers, a lot of times I'll just start remembering, I remember I talked to you last time, or some, actually most of the time I'm actually embarrassed, because they'll remember me more than I remember them. Or sometimes I love doing videos, and I can tell you more about that, why I think it's really crucial to our strategy at GitLab. But I love to put up videos of strategy and vision or specific features that we've launched. And then folks like yourself who have existing customer relationships, I post these on Slack, and then you folks do an amazing job of like, thank you, Victor. And then you send it off. Like one person even once put it on LinkedIn, and it was like totally random. And I didn't know that they do it, because I rarely log on to LinkedIn. But I was glad that I did. And then because then I was like answering questions to that customer on LinkedIn in the thread. So
Yeah.
at GitLab, we just meet our customers wherever we are, and then folks like yourself have a really crucial role to have that customer engagement and relationship. And then transactionally, product is really pulled into to answer very specific questions, and that seems to have been working as a pretty good model, because obviously we scale with the product, and then you folks scale with the accounts, and then that's a good collaboration together.
No, it sounds no. That's great that you were able to break that down. I myself, being new, didn't know that's how you guys aligned with the product and the
Right.
phases rather than with the customer. That kind of helped put things in perspective as well. I wonder if it'd be better. I don't know if it'd be better to even align or having some kind of cross-functional team from the SAs into your world too. A lot of the customer questions that we kind of get are more those technical ones, right?
Yes. Yes.
and the videos that you guys provide definitely are a great source for that. And then of course the demos that we do either live or recorded as well kind of contribute to that overall. But I know, in the future, I believe our plan is to make more videos
Great.
about feature releases, about the new feature releases, and maybe even a small 10-minute or 15-minute demo of that new release and how it can, how it works
Yep.
within the environment. And so I think we'll be definitely in communication with you guys to really understand more closely those feature sets and things like that come out.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So I have seen your videos. I have seen a lot of your comments and stuff too. How do you? I've seen a lot of like on the community. People are posting issues in there, and then I'll see for a potential proposed feature that they say, oh, we want this new feature in CE that's in enterprise, but we want it down here in core now. I guess, can you tell me more about your involvement with that process, and then also the kind of the process in whole of how features that are in enterprise or new features that are being released, how those get pushed down into core, and what decision process or kumbaya moment came to get
right.
that?
So that's a great question, and also obviously a very hot topic with folks that are active in our issue tracker for obvious reasons. So I'll preface this by sharing with you one link here, and I'll select that to you. And this is something that the product marketing team put up. I don't know. It's been a while now, maybe even over a year. And it's really great. I love how they put this together. And actually, I should have given you buyer personas. So if you click on buyer, or maybe they've changed this recently. Sorry, give me 2 seconds. Handbook GitLab tier. Okay, this one is the good one. So a while back, we had various ways of determining. So I'll definitely get to your question about how we bring features down, but just how do we put, like, initially, where do we put them? I mean, I think that's a relevant topic. And so this link is our latest and greatest way of doing it. So we had different ways to do it. We used to do it like per size and organization, and that didn't really make sense. But I really liked how product marketing put this together, and they really said, like, whoever's buying it really determines which tier it is, because they're the ones who are putting up the money, and then they're affecting their change in the enterprise per that purchasing decision. I don't know if the handbook says it to that effect, but that's how I justify it in my head, and that's how I when I introduce a new feature, right? So and then I have to write down, this is GitLab Premium, and then sometimes I'll try to anticipate the deluge of people saying, like, no, I want this in core, right? And justify it. And we're never going to satisfy people who want things for free, right? There's always a long tail folks there. But as a for-profit company, we have to have things in paid tiers. And so my job is not necessarily, as a product manager, is not to keep everybody happy, but it's to have as objective statements as possible of justifying why we made a certain decision. And then, if there's certain arguments and discussion to be had, yes, we can have those, but we're not going to go there and argue with the community and say, because we said so, or because we want to make money. Like, that's not really, it's not really respecting our community. It's not what we really believe in. And so having a framework that the marketing team gave for us, I think has been really helpful for me, because I can just rely on that framework and then make and write down words on a page that makes sense, in particular in the issues and epics. I write these things down. And then when people ask, and coming to your question, and then they say, like, why is this in this thing? I really need this. I have a small team, but I think I should still or this feature does not justify me going to the next tier because I just need this one feature for everything. So there's a lot of responses to that. So one of the response is that we don't currently, our product and our pricing is not per feature, it's not per feature set, it's not per suite, it's one product. And so yes, a customer might complain that I don't use the plan area of GitLab, but I'm still paying for Ultimate. Can you give me a discount? And maybe sales folks would. I don't know actually what they have authority to do or what they would do, but at least how we've stated in their handbook, we don't look at it that way. We look at it as we're delivering one application for you, and the downside is actually a benefit as well. It's two ways to look at the same coin and say, when you're ready to use these features, you're not paying extra. So that's another way to look at it from a pricing perspective. And then finally, how you bring down the feature to a lower tier. That's obvious that would have a lot of impact. So I'll send you the link right now if I can find it really quickly. I don't want to interrupt this conversation. So, but let me just take a note that I'll send you a link at the end, but I'll just give you the rough TLDR process for bringing down feature. So I'll send you a handbook. I think it's in the product handbook, or just some handbook, just a black and white process. Create this issue, get it reviewed by this person. Ultimately, Sid has to sign off on it. So pretty black and white process of what needs to be done. But really, the sort of nitty gritty and why that process is there. There's a couple of things. One of them is we always err on the side of too high when we introduce the feature, precisely because we can do this process. It would be the worst thing in the world to do the reverse and to really get customers angry at us because we hiked up a price. So we rather err on the side of it was too expensive to start with or too high of a tier, and then bring it down, sort of the over deliver on the promise sort of thinking.
Yeah.
Right? So that's specifically in our handbook that we can never go that direction. So if we made a mistake, we're stuck with it. We just have to ship another amazing feature to make up with it. So we've stayed in that handbook, and just as we've shipped on the 22nd of every month for however many years, we've never brought up a feature higher in tier. So we've never broken our own rule, and we're proud of that. And then, but when you bring a feature down, there's just a number of stakeholders. So product is a stakeholder, obviously, because from a perspective of the product complexity, product usage, because you get more usage in lower tiers, so that you get more feedback, obviously, and how you group certain categories of features together, and so certain things make more sense. For example, our issue board has a bunch of different ways that we slice and dice. You can have multiple issue boards, you can have different issue board lists, you can have multiple issue boards per group or per project. So there's all these dimensions, and putting them in certain tiers would change the complexity of that. I have this chart in the documentation because it's actually not that simple right now. So product is a key stakeholder there. Another key stakeholder is our sales team, obviously, right? Because they're the one that are closing deals, getting customers to buy licenses. And it goes both ways, right? So, which is interesting, is something that somebody told me once, and I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. When you bring a feature down, more customers will buy that license, which is great, right?
Yeah.
Because you want more, okay, from an ultimate to premium. So we have 3 tiers. We have 4 tiers. We have the free core tier, and then we have starter, premium, ultimate for self-managed. And then on .com, it corresponds to free, bronze, silver, and gold, respectively. And then the comparison, essentially it's 99% parity in terms of features, and the only difference is literally, runner minutes, and because on GitLab.com that matters, on self-hosted that doesn't. And then administrative features, even if you have gold on GitLab.com, you don't have access to administrative features because only GitLabbers do, right? Or GitLab infrastructure team for that matter. So otherwise, other than that, 99% features are parity, and that's the difference. And the other stakeholders is sales folks, as I mentioned, and sales folks will say, rightfully so, that if you bring a feature from Ultimate down to Premium, you'll have more Premium adoption. Those customers will be happier. That's great. But you're actually cannibalizing Ultimate sales, because then they don't need to buy those additional features. So there's a plus and a minus. And that's just like maybe the immediate, I don't know, I mean, I'm not in a place to do this math. I don't look at these numbers day to day, but maybe that's like the 3-month impact. But what is like the strategy long term? And then that sort of goes back into the product mix. But then again, like the Ultimate offering is weaker, and then there's less stuff to it. And then some customers will just say, I just always want the, because it's maybe a really big enterprise customer, and money is not a thing for them maybe, and it's maybe more about other concerns. And so we've just lost revenue from that perspective, because they realize, oh, your offering is actually not that amazing. Why am I even considering your GitLab? So there's a number of considerations from a sales perspective as well. So they're a key stakeholder. And then really I would say the rest of the stakeholders are the ones that are actually initiating the request in the first place. It might be a very key strategic thing for a certain customer that says, like, I need this feature because I've deployed multiple instances, and then I need to do open source, or my other that customer's customer needs is using this license. So there might be all these really edge case reasons, and we need to bring a feature to a certain tier to satisfy that customer. And that really kickstarts the conversation, and then sort of snowballs into the broader conversation. Is it worth it to change it just for that one customer? Is it even justified for everything that I've said with the buyer personas in the first place? Like, are we lying against our own what we stated in the handbook? We still have to stay true to that. So
the stewardship and things like that.
Exactly, the stewardship and the buyer personas. So there's all that in the mix as well. So
is that like a scheduled? And I'm not trying to interrupt you. I apologize.
No, please.
Is that like a formal thing, or is that pretty loose? Does that happen in the issue itself, where these teams
it happens Yeah, so it's formal to the degree that I'll send you that link, but the process is laid out. You create a confidential issue, people talk about it, and then, but I mean, at GitLab, our formal process is people talk and comment in issues and have calls like this. Like, what do you mean by formal? Like, do we have like a change control board, and then we have like this go to the board of direct, like certain things, yes. But like even a decision like this, which is pretty major, has very light process, and it's more about people getting together and contributing as quickly as possible. And then, especially in this particular case, Sid is the final person that approves anything or everything anyway. So it's not like from that perspective, that's the final gate for this.
Yeah, I kind of saw that in the handbook that I was reading. Basically, it goes up for review, right? You have the conversation, but at the end of the day, Sid's going to make the decision of whether that's something that we want to do or not.
Right.
What prevents it from being? It sounds like you guys, with a new feature that comes in, you guys get together, you have these types of discussions, whether they're in confidential issues or public issues. Do you ever fear, or do you feel like there's a good balance of maybe Ultimate not being, and vice versa, right? The Ultimate not being so feature rich that the core isn't, and vice versa, that it's too heavy here and too light there. How do you guys kind of handle those type of topics that come up? Is it the same process, kind of same, just bringing it up?
Yeah, it's more transactional.
Are you tracking those features?
I don't think we're doing it. I mean, everything is documented in our documentation is in our features page, and product marketing team and product team does a decent to good job of tracking everything. But in terms of like, having some metrics of like counting features or like measuring impact and doing some back of the envelope math, I don't think we do anything like that. It's more of a transactional. Somebody will say, like, oh, I think, like recently we said that, does Epics really belong to Ultimate? Are we getting enough adoption to justify it? And then somebody said, it might have even been said like, should we consider bringing it down to a lower tier? And then a lot of folks actually responded by saying, no, we shouldn't, because actually there is, like contrary to, maybe what you've heard of anecdotally, I think one of our product marketers really did exactly that, did some back of the envelope calculations inside Salesforce and said, actually, we're doing pretty decent. And it should remain an Ultimate. And we should hold the strategy for like when we introduce, so Ultimate was introduced in 2017. I believe my feature of epics, mine being our team, not mine, our team of creating epics from the plan team was, we launched with that, and maybe there was security in Ultimate, but I forget if there was. Definitely quickly, it was a fast follow, but maybe like literally in the first launch, there was nothing but epics. And it was a terrible, it looked terrible from a traditional product marketing perspective. And a product marketer told me recently that he said in retrospect, it was actually not a, it was a crazy idea, Victor, but it was a great thing. I didn't take any credit for it because, like, my boss and other folks and Sid says like, this is going to Ultimate. I'm like, okay. But we launched Ultimate with bare, like nothing, and like this really minuscule feature. Like right now, portfolio management with Epics and GitLab is it's pretty decent. It's usable. It really doesn't compete with the big guns just yet. But minus like 1.5 years, it was barely usable, and we launched a new tier with it. And it sounds ridiculous, but we sort of mitigated it with like early adopter plans, and I think sales folks were giving people discounts for the first year, that type of thing. So all that to say, we do have a history of launching tiers with barely anything and a radical imbalance. And
Sure.
we weren't going to move away from our crazy iteration value where we ship the smallest thing, because we could have said like, let's do all this, let's ship all these features, but hide them and not show them, wait till we've accumulated before launching Ultimate, but that would go against everything that we've done and found success in the past. So we just elected to do a new tier that looked really stupid, like for most people, I would guess. But people are buying Ultimate now, so I think it has worked out.
No, I think that's great. That I know the inner approach is definitely important, and I think that's something that definitely separates. Besides that, in the community following, I think separates GitLab definitely as a product in the industry as far as competition goes too. Do you ever? I guess I struggle with this. I'm an open source aficionado. I'm the kind of, I love open source. Do you ever feel, so there's a product called Elasticsearch. It's widely known now, and they've gone public as well. And it's definitely, hit the market with force. Before I was doing that's what I was doing, right? Deploying these for enterprise companies, and they were really separating the thing. And in their tier structure, they kind of give a lot in their GA or general availability in the core, and they only have 2 tiers, which is premium and ultimate, I guess, or enterprise, you could say it. Would that ever be something, that a model that we would kind of follow, and not trying to follow this particular organization, but maybe just see the good works they've done? Would there ever be a consideration where starter goes away, those move into core, and then you just have those 2 tiers? And because my battle with it is, are we more focused on sales or product adoption initially, right? And for me, product adoption always is going to surmount to sales. It's always going to lead to sales. You can't get away from it.
Right.
And then you're doing right by the community too, by saying, hey, try all these things. Now, the features that we provide in core will be limited. And the separation between premium and ultimate would be those caps coming off on those tiers. Would that be a better model rather than having to make the decision of whether we want to pull this down, full feature rich, but actually provide all the features in core, but just with limited, maybe you have approvals, but maybe you don't have the multi-stage approvals that you have now, right? Something to that effect, where it's all going down, it's just limited on that feature set, and then identifying it per the market that you're looking for.
No, that's a great question. And 2 or 3 responses.
I know that's probably bigger than for you, right?
But it's definitely a valid question. And so there's a good number of responses that I just flew by my head. I'll try to remember them. So one of them is that we do bring features down to lower tiers, including core, per the process that I mentioned. For example, we brought GitLab pages down to core. Was it Christmas of 2018 or 2017? I forget. I think 2018.
It was recent. Yeah.
So that's 2018. And then I think we took time tracking to core, like maybe 2017. So we do have a thing where we do that, whether it's, and we try to make a big prior marketing splash around that. So that's not unheard of, where we take major features. From the perspective of, what is in core, what do you get? So there's a couple of ways to look at it. One way is that's really relevant is we tell ourselves, or we say that core is our biggest competitor at GitLab, meaning that there's so much adoption of core that we're competing with core to convert those people into paying customers of GitLab. So that's when we think about it. And that goes to show that the core product suite is pretty good. And so we say in our handbook, which is true, that the complete DevOps lifecycle is in core. So we don't think of it as each tier brings you additional stages of the DevOps lifecycle. Each stage of the DevOps lifecycle is deepened by each tier as you go up the tiers, but you get the whole thing all at once. And because it's a big competitor, another way to look at it, it's also an amazing lead for us. It's a marketing lead because people are easily downloading. And so, for example, how we really doubled down on this is in the past, our CE and our EE distributions are different, and they still are. And so if you're a customer, like you're like a GNOME or one of these open source folks, or that really just needs hardcore open source, you can download GitLab CE or GitLab Core in the distribution called CE and code, and there's no proprietary code there. And you use it, and it's great, and then you for all the reasons that you need to do from an open source perspective. There's other customers that don't really care about open source, but they just care about pricing, right? They just want free GitLab.
Yeah.
And so what we've offered them is you can download GitLab EE distribution, but you can run it without a license, and we will not nag you to put a license in. And so this was a change put in maybe a year ago. I don't know. It's
interesting.
And the reason we did that specifically is we know that core is a lead. It's an amazing lead for us, right? So why not allow people to install this EE? We'll never nag them for adding a license to pay for additional features. But if you ever want to, you don't have to install something new. All you have to do is pay us for a license. We'll give you that license, and you install the license key or copy and paste it literally. And then now you have all these amazing features. So that's beneficial for the customer. It's beneficial for us because they don't have to install something else. And then we're converting these leads literally by clicking a button, as opposed to asking their entire infrastructure team to reinstall, relaunch and everything. So that goes to show really our thinking about how core is from a pricing perspective. It's a lead. It's a marketing lead. It's full featured. We stand by it. The stewardship aspect is huge as well. So for example, folks who contribute to GitLab, if you read our stewardship page, we say that, we won't accept a merge request that you simply took a EE feature and turned into a core feature. Obviously, we won't accept that. But if we say we want a feature in EE right now and that we haven't worked on it, and we always invite people to contribute, and they say that, I really want to contribute, but I want this in CE because I want the world to use it. We will not say no off the bat. We will say, let's work together. And then, so what we'll probably do is we'll work really close with them to scope out the smallest thing. And then maybe we'll rework our own plans to try to scope something into core, because we'd rather have a feature in core than a non-existing feature that's paid. Right. So
that's
exactly. So that's how we think about, and you were talking about how product leads to sales, right? And that's exactly the trade-off we would have in that case, because it's just makes sense. We can have an opportunity to build a feature that's paying later on. Let's not worry about that. And so the opportunity cost there is obvious. The trade-off is that, yes, please, we'll take the feature. And I've precisely did that with one community contributor in an area require quality management that we're working on, doing test cases inside GitLab itself. We wanted that in the paid tier. The community member says, I want this in open source. And I said, yes, please. And then we're working together. So we really emphasize that. And then lastly, you mentioned will we ever dissolve the core tier, or sorry, the starter tier? Maybe, I don't know. That's one of those really far off in the future things. The way I look at it is that we had two tiers before. So when I joined in November 2016, we had just Enterprise Edition. It was Community Edition, Enterprise Edition. Right now, today, CE and EE means code distributions. Back then, it meant code distribution. It also meant pricing. It also meant GitLab.com. Now, CE and EE technically means code distribution, as I mentioned earlier. And so the EE version you can run EE as core. But my point being, when I joined, it was just these two things. And then I think like a month after I joined, we had premium. And then I said in 2017, which was like a year after I joined, we added the third tier. So like within a year and change, like we added 2 tiers really quickly. And I think my understanding back then, and it's still true right now, we were not being ambitious enough. I think we were like looking at, again, you can talk to sales folks at GitLab and you can sort of recount some of the history. But I think we were just not ambitious enough about charging, prices and looking at the market and our the industry and where like our value, like we're shipping amazing things. We really think that we can charge 5 times as much from premium to ultimate. So does that mean one day like our sales would justify bringing some of those starter features down to core? Maybe. So we're already doing that. Will there be a day where we can just do that? I don't know. But I don't really think about it as you compared to Elasticsearch, which is actually integrates with GitLab. The like having 2 or 3 tiers, I think of it just more in levels of gray. Like, we had 1 tier, then we had 2, and then now we have 3, and then the market thinks 3 makes sense. So people smarter than me at GitLab will probably say, like, will we ever have a 4th tier? Like, probably not. I doubt it. But I can like have going back to 2 because we chop up the bottom tier. Everything you said makes sense to me. I don't see it like not making sense. So that's how I would think of it from like a pricing and revenue perspective there.
And I know it's iterative too, right? I mean, that whole process in itself. I'm curious too with the competition in the market that's coming through. I mean, JFrog Artifactory now has this thing called X-Ray, right? Which takes away almost what SAST and DAST is doing in the enterprise version.
Yeah, right.
And not so much in an ultimate comparison. Do you see core features opening up because of the competition? So like if GitHub or another competitor says they do multi-stage approvals or something like that in their free and their offering, is that something that we would go, you know what, so do we now? We have it, and it's just a flip of a switch. Not really, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
It's more.
Well, we're trying to actually make that. We have 2 distributions, and I think we're actually trying to merge it somehow. So there's some technical. We're trying to have one code.
Yeah, the EE and the CE, and
exactly.
Making that one repo. Yeah, I think that's fantastic, especially for the support and maintenance of that. So
right, and then you can.
I was wondering, how does that? Well, that's a whole separate thing. But I was how do you? We could go into that another time.
The competitive aspect is, yes, we definitely don't work in a bubble. But like most companies, we also, like most good companies that do product, we don't base our only things on competition. Obviously,
Sure.
we work with our customers. I'd like to say, we're inventing the future of agile DevOps. So we got to focus on that customers as opposed to, and then our core customer constituency is a little bit different, because other customers who use other competitors, they might mix and match and string things together. We help them to not do that, but when it actually comes to purchasing decisions, a lot of times it actually matters that the customer is taking one approach versus the other. So that's one aspect. But really answering your question specifically, I can think of one case where we gave Ultimate for free for education institutions. And I forgot what that was in response to, if it was in response to anything at all. But it may have been, like a lot of these tools, like I think you can use like Google Apps for free if you're a nonprofit or something like that. So like that type of, it was probably related to that type of thing where maybe there was an announcement from GitHub or somebody else that said, now we're into education now. And like, so GitLab, we're not, our product set is not that far yet into really doubling down and building stuff for education or like, even academia and research. that's my background actually. So I'm really passionate.
Their market's still catching up for sure.
Exactly. And then,
oh yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
So we're still, we're like, our mission is to have everybody contribute on, rewrite on all digital content, right? Or vision, or, so I probably like got that wrong, but read, write on all digital content. That's like our mission to,
Right.
GitLab. So if you think about that, that's like way beyond software development, right?
Yeah.
But obviously we're in the DevOps space and software development space. So we're focused on that. But in response to like an education thing, we'll say like, oh, anybody in education can use GitLab.com for free, not GitLab.com, GitLab for free. And then I'll dig up that blog post as well, Ultimate for Education, and send you that. And you can take a look at that and see if there's actually any context there, maybe relevant. And then a different one is like open source. We're really big with open source, so we want to support open source. This one's a little bit confusing with our product that we're supposed to improve on, but I think it's, if you have an open source, yeah, I'm pretty sure, you have open source project on GitLab.com, you get all the gold features for free, even though, as long as you're a public project, if I believe correct. So again, I'll dig that up for you because
no, that's good. I didn't know there was that many.
And I put this in the YouTube
sides
video.
to it,
And so that comes to, again, the competitive piece. We're competing for open source mindshare. Obviously, GitHub is like the leader in terms of, I would say, developers, individual developers, and mindshare in terms of that ecosystem, that social network. And then we're making gains, I would say, we are dominant in the enterprise space from a source code perspective, a source control perspective, and pushing people adopting open source within organizations. And so maybe, whether that's they're participating open source outside of their organizations or doing inner sourcing practices, which is just open source internally. So from that perspective, from an enterprise team's perspective, I think we're leading there. But again, we'll make we'll make features. We'll adjust tiering, like you said, in response to some of those things to hit those points. So I can't think of any other example, but those come to mind, like the GitLab pages, time tracking, open source, and then education are some things where we made like a statement and we said like, this is free, this is available for those reasons.
No, I think that's, yeah, I know. Sorry, I keep coming up with this. All the stuff that's in my head. I had one more that
Please.
came to me, if I can remember. And I apologize if I keep you too long on this.
No, you're good.
Just let me know.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's gone, and it was gonna be a good one, I promise. So talk about the products. So besides your team, so you guys kind of handle, it sounds like really the nitty gritty of the feature sets and the proposals and things like that. What, I guess, what can the solutions architect team do better to help you guys in that area? I know we don't necessarily have that cross-functionalness, and we don't necessarily,
right.
We're both aiming for different goals, but together at the same goal,
sure,
right?
Sure.
Do you see a position where, or even where maybe having more of a cadence together would benefit from that? Or because I know whether we get feature requests or technical questions and things like that, I know you guys have your Market Monthly, I believe, that comes out, and you guys talk about the feature set. Right. But it's very, it's not a lot of time to really go into it and stuff like that. Maybe with having a cadence like this, even with like you and I or my team coming together and discussing some of those feature sets, do you think that would be beneficial?
I think so. I'm generally very cautious of any type of periodic meetings at GitLab. I know a lot of people, it's not opinion that's shared amongst with everybody. And I have actually very little standing meetings with folks, and I found that very successful. And the reason I personally feel that it's been successful for me is because I don't use that as a crutch to get things done. And so, and and again, I say that this is a very personal opinion, because maybe if I did, I would use it as a crutch, but maybe for other folks, it's actually very powerful and effective and efficient. So the way I like to work, and this part I think is very GitLab, and I do push for it, is that we should have a lot of transactional interactions and that move things incrementally forward. So a strong value, or not strong, a value of GitLab is iteration. I think Sid said on one of a call recently, he said that a lot of people underestimate that value. And I did myself. I'm a product manager. Of course we iterate. That's like how product management 101, if you work in any tech company nowadays, right? But then the level of iteration in terms of the product and how we scope things down to the minimum is something that I did not experience before. And then that being a company value, and this culture and history of open source for us has pushed that value to apply not to just building product, but actually building process and then scaling the organization. So what that means is that I tell people, like, don't create an issue just to talk about things. Don't have just a Slack conversation. Don't just put a calendar invite and grab some people. Start with a merge request, start with a proposal, start with something very tangible and a suggestion that you want something done. Maybe, okay, it's okay maybe once in a while if it's like a really big problem and you need to tackle like a big mountain. And that makes sense. And then you have the strategy thing, and then so maybe it's ongoing. Of course, we still do those things at GitLab. But what I've observed with a lot of success at GitLab, whether it's building features or building process at GitLab, is always have you as a contributor to GitLab, whether you're whichever member of whichever department you are, everybody can contribute at GitLab because that's what we believe in. And so you can suggest a feature, it's a process change at GitLab, and you can have all the stakeholders review it. And the smaller that change is, the more likely people will contribute and review it. Because if you say something like, I want, a monthly meeting to talk about these 5 things, and I want, all these VPs joining, right? Like that's never going to happen, of course, right? Yeah. But if you're going to say like, I have this thing where, I always need to know from you, product manager, this information because, this set of information for a customer, and I need at this cadence, or customers always ask me about this thing. Can you provide this information for me? And my suggestion is I will want you, Victor, to run a report on GitLab.com, or use the CSV export file on GitLab.com to generate that report for me, and then send that to me. Like, you can say something specific like that. Yeah. And I can participate because I don't have to say, why do you really want that, Jefferson? Like, what's your problem? What's the underlying problem? So, because I used to do that when I came at GitLab. I'm like, because I'm a product manager, I'm a problem solver. I want to solve your problems for you. I'll build a feature for you. I'll build something that's scalable. Or maybe an engineer will be like, I'll write a script for you. But what I realized that I can't get up in everybody's business and solve everybody's problems. I have to trust the people that are coming to me. And in this example, you're coming to me. I have to trust that you're a really smart person because GitLab hired you. And I have to say that you're asking me for this. Can I deliver this to you with the limited information in my brain? Like, does it add a lot more work for me? Can I do it really quickly? Is there like a marginally easier thing for me to do that maybe gets you there 80%? And I respond to you in that feature proposal, in that issue. And you actually don't even need to set up a call with me to discuss that. You just say you create like a merge request in the handbook that says, every month Victor has to do this. And then you just type it up, and there's a review app, and then I can look at it and I say, sure, I'll do that. And I click merge, and then that's done. And it didn't take a meeting. You had a benefit, like you had a process benefit. You've iterated and you've done something better. And then maybe it takes like a minute out of my 1 month activities. And I put like a Google Calendar alert, and that's done. So then it's done, it's fine. It's like it works, and we've improved. And we don't need that. And your original question is, should we have a monthly cadence or whatever cadence? And my answer is, figure out what the problems you think you have are, and then think of some ways to solve them. And if you can't figure it out, or like, let's have a meeting and talk through some of them. And then maybe eventually it'll come to like, oh, we have so many strategic customers, we really need a weekly cadence, and let's have
I love that. No, I love that answer. That's an answer I've never I don't think I've actually gotten an answer quite like that. Because you're absolutely right. If these are issues that are being tracked, right, features that are coming out and epics that are coming, or different things that are coming out, there's going to be an issue board that I should be able to see. I should be able to dive into these issues and go, hey, this is the feature that's coming, and this is what it does and how it works, and then go through it. So I appreciate that. I think it's a better answer, and that I wasn't thinking about either. Right, coming into it, I wasn't like, yeah, he's right. It's all open. It's all right there. Just go look.
It's all there, and
a rundown.
Right, and I told another new GitLab earlier this week, and I promised that person I would start recording all of my future calls. So that's why I'm doing this. So every time I repeat this, I can refer to a video. I thought of this analogy like during the call, or maybe I was sleeping one day, and I said, like, just as like crazy finance people who are really smart, which I'm not one of those, they say that to get rich, you should make money in your sleep. Like your money should make money for you, type of thing.
Right.
I think at GitLab we should do that. Like when I'm sleeping and you're an SA not in my time zone, halfway across the world, and you need information from me, like you shouldn't need to wait 12 hours. It should be self-service. You should be able to do something, and you shouldn't need to wait for the weekly sync even, right? You shouldn't need to wait.
Right.
I should have all the information at your fingertips, and we should build a scalable process and iterate to get there. And so that's how I think about it. Like when I'm sleeping, I should be adding value to GitLab, because during my waking hours, I've created all this content, I've created all these processes with my team members that they can take advantage of. And so, and in an async manner, async self-service, on-demand manner. And so that's something I've been thinking through a lot as I've been, as the company is growing like ridiculously right now, right? There's so much more interfaces, and I'm just really scared that, thankfully up to now, my calendar is still normal, right? It's in previous jobs, it's like, by the first half year, everybody knows you at that organization, and they just want your time, and you don't get work done. And so I'm really happy that I personally have not suffered that yet, and I'm able to get work done. But still, to the degree I think I actually haven't gotten feedback saying like Victor's not engaging or anything like that. So I think I'm still keeping everybody happy, but at the same time, I'm able to get my work that my boss wants me done.
Yeah.
I can still move forward with my quote unquote core tasks.
Yeah, no, I think the tenure here you have is crucial with that as well, because you bring in, coming into this, you'll read the handbook, you'll read the core values, you'll read those things.
Right.
And being such a different company that GitLab is, it's hard. There takes some unwinding, right?
Yeah.
People coming from a different industry, like an Oracle or anywhere where there's this maturity in the organization, there's this process. You coming here, you kind of have to tear all that down. If not, what ends up happening, and I'm kind of seeing with Slack, and I wish we had a better avenue. All these channels keep getting open up, right? There's private DMs going everywhere, and the visibility and transparency that we all benefit as a team, I think, as a whole, rather than someone personally getting beat up on an individual level and suffering in silence, right? That happens in most organizations with silence.
Exactly.
I definitely see that now, and as the culture grows, I can only imagine it's going to not get worse, but it's going to bring up some additional reinforcing of said values and cores based off what I'm seeing. Based off Slack alone, would it make more sense just to move to ChatOps, right? Within GitLab, and if ChatOps can't have that, it doesn't have that feature set right now of building that in, right? So that you have this all-in-one tool that I don't have to leave. I don't have to go to Slack or I don't have to to go to those other competitors. I don't want to. It's all right there. And if you need to look something up, back to your thing, like when you're sleeping, is it coming back? Are you contributing? And that, I think that's what we should be focusing, rather than all these tools that are enterprise ready, and they're great tools in their own regard. But I think when coming from a culture and an organization, we have to be careful not to just adopt what everyone else is doing, because then we're going to end up being those businesses that use GitHub or use Jenkins still, not because GitLab's not a superior product to it. It's just what they've always done. And why change that? You have these silos that are ingrained and they're deep, and they've taken root to the whole company as a whole, and trying to prevent that. So I think speaking to you, I think you should probably be on the onboarding uh, everyone needs to come talk to Victor, man, because you definitely bring a lot of those core values that you read in the handbook, and you bring it to life, and that's really refreshing to see that it is being followed, and it's not so much just a decision you have to regretfully make every day, but it's something that you know what I
Right.
mean. But it's something that you've actually embraced within the company, and you're trying to fulfill that going forward. So that's why your answer that you gave about you teach a man to fish kind of thing.
Right,
I
right.
feel I feel like that's really refreshing, and that's something that, like I said, I haven't heard before. So
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm sure you'll meet many more GitLabbers who are just
yeah,
as passionate. It's hard, and yeah, I mean, best of luck. It's we're just adding more and more folks every week in pretty much all
yeah,
departments. Where I think we're hiring pretty much all departments, and so it's not easy. I mean, we're inventing a lot of this as we go. So
sure.
don't think like we have all the answers. We definitely don't.
Yeah,
So.
no, 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 absolutely. I understand that completely.
Yep.
Well, that's all the time I have. I didn't want
Yeah.
to. I'm sure I have more questions, and perhaps I'll hit you up and
Yeah.
put
Please
you on
do.
this channel or something like that, because, like I
Yeah.
said, you bring a great wealth of knowledge
Yeah.
with you.
Appreciate it.
So, but thank you very much for taking this time, Victor. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Definitely. Talk to you later.
All right, see ya.
Bye now.